This is Colleen Brown. I'm a ZVM developer and I've used CMS for a lot, many years. So I'm going to go through some hints and tips of things that you can do to customize your CMS sessions. And there's a couple of things that I kind of wanted to show you in the help menus. So you've got your basic help, and then you've got several different subtopics for help. When you go into both the CP has a set and a query. So here's the query right here. You can see my cursor. And then the set. And set has a bazillion different things under it. So if you go into the set and then you go to the related, you can find a wealth of information here on a lot of different settings. Some of the interesting things for customizing your session, you've got your e-message help, and there's a lot of different settings for e-message. And you've got your iMessage. iMessage is an information message, e-message is an error message. Sometimes somebody will show you a screenshot and there's no message numbers in front of their messages. And if you go into the e-message setting, you can customize this so that you get the error message or you don't get the error message. And then all of these settings can be queried. If you go to the query menu, you can find the queries there. If you go back and you look at CMS, CMS has a similar thing with the set and the query. So here's the query for CMS, and there's a lot of things here. And you can set all of these things, and then you can query them. And you probably have already looked through a lot of this stuff, but those two, there's a lot of things underneath them. Whereas a lot of these, it's just the command, like you take exec drop or exec IO or global or whatever, and it's just that command. The set and query have a lot of things under them. When you log on to VM and you IPL CMS, there's a system profile that will run, and that will call a profile exec. The profile exec, if you don't have your own, lives on the system disk, and it will run that one. So we'll look at mine. And you can customize your session here. However, what we're looking at, the colors that we're looking at here, this turquoise, the blue on the left with the numbers, the yellow at the top, those are all from the profile XEDIT. You can typically find profiles for a lot of things. You can find a profile exec that will run when your system starts. You can find a profile XEDIT that will customize your XEDIT sessions. You can find a profile, I think it's called prof list exec for file list or F list, one of them. So there's a lot of different profiles out there that you can run. So I set up like my PF keys. I set my PF keys in here, program function keys. And these are the ones that I happen to set up. I've got a PF4, a PF5, a PF6. I've got a PF9 for a file list. So once this profile runs, and you can run it anytime you want, you can just type in profile and it will run. These keys will be set up. You can set up things like linking to disks in here that you always use. You can set up the colors for your screen in here. So I've got my status area red, my input area is pink, and my output area is yellow. So if I get out of here and I look at this is my status area is yellow, Here's the red over here on the right where it says running GDL VM7, and if I type, it's pink. So those settings are set in my profile exec. Anyway, so that's your profile exec. Let me go back to my script here. Okay, on your PF keys, there's an immediate option and a substitute option. So if you look at my PF1, I have it set as immediate. So if I hit PF1, it will immediately set file pull to that. But if I do PF2 for retrieve, it doesn't do that immediately. So let me get out of here, and I'll show you that. So if I hit PF1, it immediately does that. But if I hit PF2, it puts it down on the bottom here, and then I can hit Enter to run or to XEDIT that file. So there's an immediate or not immediate option. Okay, back to the help menus. So if I go back to CP and I go to Set and my PF keys, you can see the substitute option. So the one I was showing you was the immediate and the delayed, and there's also a no display option. So substitute, I don't use this one, but I guess a lot of people do. You can substitute in some variables in your PF key setting. So if you set PF2 and substitute immediate display, and you've got these variables that you wanted to display, and if you enter this on your command line and press PF2, then these two variables, so these will be substituted into these variables. So that's a handy function to be able to use. Retrieve. Retrieve can be customized. So you can retrieve the last command that you entered, and you can set it to the maximum allowed by the system, or you can set it to a certain number of retrieves, like you could set it for the 5 previous ones. Different systems are set differently for their maximum. So then when you hit, mine is PF12, so I can query my PF keys and it'll show me what my settings are. And my PF12 is set to retrieve. So I can hit PF12 and it'll go back, scroll back through these previous commands that I entered, and I can pick one that I want to use. Okay, reader list and file list. You probably have already seen reader list and file list. I happen to have a lot of crap in my reader. So you can look at that, and file list to look at things on your A disk or any of your access disks or directories. And you can get help for those. You can get help for reader list. And there's a profile that you can set for reader list, so you can customize your reader list the way you want. And you can get help on file list. And there's a profile, file name process, LST exec for file list, so you can customize the way that looks too. And I went over the set in the query. Now these are some of the more common CMS commands that I use. Everybody kind of has their own favorite set, I suppose, of commands that they use. List file is very much like file list, except that it simply lists your files. So I can list my exec files on my A disk, and it'll just simply list them. I can list them and have the output, go to a file if I wanted to. So it will create a file called CMS Exec, and there's all of my files that I just listed. It put them into an exec, and you see that it's got variables listed at the beginning of it. So now I could run this exec, CMS Exec, and I could give it variables, and then run whatever that is. Here's one that I run, and I do some commands. I do EDL commands on these files, and it does the same command for all 11 of these files. Okay, so copy simply copies one file to another. I don't think we need to go through every one of these. You can get into the help information for these to find out how to use them. Browse is a handy one. Sometimes you get a file that is too big to look at. I don't know if I have any on my disk right now. Oh, sort. Sort's a handy one. I want to sort oh, there we go. So I wanted to sort on columns. I did 55 to 65. So I sorted on the number of blocks. All right, so I'll just go to the bottom. So I have one that's 912 blocks. That's really not a lot. So I can probably edit this file. Sorry, edit. And I have a PF key set up for that. But I could also browse it. If my file is too big, I can browse the file. And I can do a lot of the things I can do in XEDIT, not everything. But I can look at the file and the contents and stuff if it's too big.
If anybody's wondering what we mean by too big, typically you run into that when you maybe have a humongous console log from a system that has run for days, output log. So it's not often that you will run into a file that's too big unless you are doing problem analysis of some sort like that, where you're going to get multiple days of output, that type of thing. So don't be like, oh my gosh, how often are my files going to be too big? It's pretty rare.
It's rare. Another thing, when you look at files in your reader, you can query your reader. So you can see the files in your reader, but that's not necessarily helpful. But I can get into reader list, and it puts me into a session that's kind of like a file list session. And I can look at these files, and I can receive the files onto my A disk or any of my disks that are write disks. Or if I don't know what the contents really are, then I can peek. And I have a PF key set up for peek. I like peek. So I can peek the file and just look at it. Oh, no, that's not the one I wanted. I really wanted file, this one here. So, oh, okay, now I want to receive that one. So you can just kind of examine them in your reader before you really do anything with them. Peek is also customizable. So you can, the default is to peek 200 lines. So those humongous files like Melissa was talking about, if you don't want to peek, a gazillion lines because it's going to take a while to peek it, but you can, the default is 200. So actually I could say, let's see, this one here, I could say peek for 20. And it'll just peek 20 lines. So I don't have to peek the entire file. Okay, so when you get into XEDIT, there's a lot of interesting subcommands that you can do in XEDIT. And I'm going to look at the help for it first. So there's XEDIT commands and there's XEDIT subcommands. So XEDIT commands you typically do when you type in XEDIT or, something similar. Column locate. So you can locate things in a particular column in your file. You can copy things when you're in your file. So you copy one or more lines beginning with the current line at a specified location. So there's these things, and then there's XEDIT subcommands. So file, if you want to save your file, any changes that you've made to your file, you file it away, or you can type in save. Save will save the changes but not exit from your file. File will save and exit. You can locate a word or string in your file. You can locate a word or string in a column in your file. You can count the number of occurrences of a string in your file. You can use power typing, which some people, the editors that are available today, you might be more familiar with power typing. It might be a more comfortable environment than the typical line editing. So if I'm in my profile exec, I can, over here on the left, I can put an I because I want to insert a line. Or I can copy a line with the double quote. I can copy the same line 3 times with a double quote and a 3. So I can do a lot of that type of editing. But maybe I want to edit, I just want to type in a bunch of text. So I can go into power typing and I can just type here, and Melissa, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can just continue typing and it'll go to the next line, right? Yeah. And then when I do that, of course, this file is 130 wide, so you can't, what am I viewing? So there you see all the things that I just put in. So that might be a more comfortable environment or a more familiar environment for some people. So when you're looking at a file, you can view the file. V is view, so I can view columns 3 through 15. So now I'm only viewing those columns. I can view columns 1 to 80, or I can view columns 1 to whatever the LRECL. The LRECL is the length of a record in your file. This one happens to be a 130, so I can look at all of them. Or to look at all of them, I can type in V space 1 space 1/3 asterisk, sorry. And that'll do the same thing. It'll go the width of the file. So up here on the top, you have the V. You either have a V or an F. V is a variable length file, so variable length records, or F is a fixed length file, and you have fixed length records. So if I look in file list, you can see the format of these files. Some of them are fixed and some of them are variable. And there's different restrictions depending on, what you're doing with the file, what it's for, what its purpose is. The other thing you have is the record length. So this is the record length of a file, of the files. This one is a module file. You can't really see a whole lot in it, but its record length is huge. So if I look at that, you don't see a lot, but if I did, so I go to 3564, and I can see that's what I'm looking at here, starting on line 2. This is all one record down. Here's where line 3 starts. So this is a huge, long line. But this is also a variable length file, so my records are variable length. And record 1 is only 80 wide. It's only over to 80. But record 2 is huge. What else? The truncation, trunk at 130. So this means that anything I type past 130 will be truncated and it won't be included in the file. And that's customizable. The size is how many records are in my file. So if I go to the bottom of this file, you'll see there's 86 records in here. I'm looking, starting at column 1. I don't know what the alt is. Do you know what the alt is, Melissa?
It's the number of changes that you've made since the last save, I think. Something like that. It's something about the number of changes that you've made since a previous point.
Right.
Alterations.
Alterations. Well, I don't want to change. I don't want to keep those changes that I put in here. So instead, I'm going to quit out of here. And if I go back in, you'll see that those changes are not there. But I could duplicate this line here, and I could do a save. And then if I quit out, you'll see that that's there because I saved it. Count the occurrences, power typing, save, split and join versus split join. Okay, so if I'm in here, my PF keys are set up separately for split and join. So if I'm on this line here, and it could be, 100 characters wide, or this one happens to be just a few, I can hit my PF key 2, and it will split the line so that right wherever I put my cursor, it'll go to the next line. The other thing I can do is I can hit my PF3 and join that line back together. There's also split join, which is on one PF key, and if I put my PF key in the middle of the line, it'll pick split. If I put it at the end of the line, it'll pick join, and it just picks up the line below it and joins it. Those are very handy XEditing options. And these are called subcommands. So when you're in XEdit, you can set these things, and a lot of these things you can set in your profile XEdit. Let's see, case, color, your current line, your file mode, your file name. So if I'm in my file and it's called profile exec, I can change my file name by putting FN there, and I can change it to test. So now if you look up at the top, it's now called test exec, and I can file that away. So if I do a file list now, there's test exec. Let's see. I can change the file type. I can change my current line to, so my current line, I happen to have my current line highlighted in turquoise, and I have it this far down on my screen. So I can change my current line to line 20.
Colleen?
Yes?
Try set curl line on 20.
Oh, there we go. So it moved my curl line down to 20. It helps when you enter the command correctly. I can change the file name, the file type, the file mode. Okay, so when you're in XEdit, if you don't have a profile XEdit, I believe this comes up without the prefix line set. So this is called the prefix area, and you can set prefix on right. So I can move it over here to the right if I like it over there. I can set prefix on left if I want it over on the left. These number lines that are on here, I can set num off so I don't have number lines, or I can set num on, and I do have number lines. I prefer to have those number lines there. Not everybody does. I like my prefix area on the left. Some people like it on the right. I think you can set it off. Yeah, so you don't even have to have it at all. But then editing this thing, it makes it harder. I can do an insert from down here, and I can insert the word test, and it'll insert it right below whatever my current line is. So it inserted it right there, and it becomes the current line. Or I could say insert, and it'll put me in insert mode, and I can type a bunch of lines of text in here. Tabs, some of the current editors that people are familiar with have tabs. I don't happen to have tabs set on mine, but you can set tabs, and you can set, you can turn tabs on, and then you can set the tab columns. If you're searching through a file for a particular string, so I want to do locate, commented, it's right there. And I can retrieve that with the equal sign, and I can do it multiple times. Now, up here at the top, you see wrapped. You can either set that so that it will wrap to the top and come back down to the first one it finds, or you can turn that off so it stops when it gets to the end of the file.
Colleen?
Yes?
I'm sorry if you said this and I missed it, but just to make the point, all of these XEDIT commands that Colleen is showing you are all commands that you can put in your profile XEDIT so that they run every time you bring XEDIT up. If it's something you want to happen every time, obviously if it's something you want to do just for that session, you don't want to put it in your profile XEDIT. But all of these things, set the prefix on, off, to the right, to the left, setting your current line, setting your colors, all those things are customizable and can be put into the profile XEDIT.
That's a very good point. And here's my profile XEDIT, and you can see that I set my prefix on left. I set the numbers on. I set my current line on 11 because I like to see some of the, if I'm farther down in the file, I want to see what's above it and what's below it. I set nulls off. Some people, out here on the, when you're entering data on a line, let's see, if I did hex type, so set prefix on left, and I have 40s here. These are blanks. Some people like to have blanks set there. Some people like to have nulls set there, and it could be dependent on an editor that you're used to. Well, I'm used to having nulls there, not blanks. So you might want to customize that. I set my colors here. So I can set the color. The pending is yellow, prefix is blue, and I have it reverse video. My tab line is pink. Message line is blue. So you can set all of these different things. My arrow, the color of my arrow to blue reverse video that's here. You can customize. If I always edit assemble files and I want them to truncate at 72 characters, so I can set that in here. There's a ton of different settings that you can set in here.
Colleen, I'm sorry
Yeah.
to keep interrupting, but you just doing hex type I think might be interesting to people. So when she did the hex type, that shows you the EXEDIT representation of the data on the current line. You know, that can be really useful, again, when you are doing debugging maybe, because every once in a while, for some strange reason, you end up with some weird characters that are not displayable off the right-hand side of your line, because not every hex number is a displayable character. In this case, 40 is the EXEDIT code for blank, so you notice that, you know, there's 40s at the end of the line. That's what she was talking about. But every once in a while, especially if you're looking at a file that was generated by a program, maybe you got some unexpected garbage out there that you can't actually see because it's not a displayable character. So every once in a while that hex type comes in really handy to see what the actual hex representation of the data is on those lines. So that I thought that might be interesting to people.
You can also view in hex. So I just did view hex 1 to 80, view hex 1 to 50, something like that, and you can see and you can actually edit this here. I can type things in. I could type in a bunch of 8s, and then if I went back to verify 1 to 80, I entered some funky stuff in here. But this is a good module files. I mean, you wouldn't typically edit a module file this way, but this shows these double quotes, those are undisplayable characters. So that kind of shows what Melissa was talking about there. So there's hex type, and there's also verify or view in hex. So hex type shows the one line, and I happen to have a scale on here, so I can see what line, you know, like it says if file name equals EOSconfig, then exit, and I can see the EXEDIT representation up here. But if I did a view hex 1 to 30, it's going to be different. That's that same line, but it doesn't show me the character representation for those same things. All right, let's see, what else do we have here? Wrap, zone. I'm not going to go through, oh, split screen might be interesting. So I can, I'm in Profile XEDIT. I can do screen 2, and now I'm in Profile XEDIT in 2 different places, Profile XEDIT. So this one, I can look at line, I can go to the top, I want to go to line 10. And in this one, I want to compare it with what's on line 50. Well, not that they're anything alike, but I can look at the same file in different places. Or, if I wanted to, I can go into a different file and go into my Profile Exec, and I can look at that. And I could copy these lines here, and I could enter them here and paste that in here if I wanted to. So the other thing I can do is I can do screen to vertical, so I can have them side by side instead of on top of each other. Profile Exec, these are some of the things that I had set in my Profile Exec that I've already showed you. So you can set your ready message, which is the message. If you're out of these things, this is the ready message right here. I can customize that so it will show the return code from whatever I just did. Line edit, I can put links to disks that I use commonly and then access them. Link is a CP command. So CP links the disk that it's on, the mini disk or the directory, but CMS will access it so you can actually look at what's on there. All synonyms. So I got my PF keys set up here. I've got my screen type set up here. Another interesting thing is synonym. Help CMS. So I can set up synonyms. Instead of typing in file L, which is the minimum abbreviation for file list, I want to just type in F, and the system will know that I mean file list. So I can set that up in a synonym file. I have a synonym file here. So send reader is a command that I can do in reader list. I want the synonym for that to be SR. So I'm in my reader, and I want to send this to another ID. Or I can do send reader, and it will know that I mean the same thing, and it will send my spool file. So you can set up different synonyms, and I think you have to turn synonyms on, don't you? Let's see. Yeah, you have to tell it what the name of your synonym file is. So in my profile exec, I have synonym mysyn, and it will set that up for me. We're getting close. One last thing I wanted to show you is defaults. These are defaults. You can set a bunch of defaults in CMS this way. So I can type in defaults. It'll give me a whole bunch of things. Here's my peak. I set my peak to peak from 1-4 asterisk, which means the entire file. I can set defaults. I could set default set peak for 10, I think. And now if I look at my defaults, it's from 1 for 10. And there's a file on your disk called lasting global V. And in lasting global V, it will keep so this is the one, the last one that I just did. It keeps those settings in this default in lasting global V. So there's a bunch of things you can set there. And we're out of time. I apologize for not getting to everything, but there's just so much that you can customize to make it look the way you want it to look, or to feel the way you want it to feel. You can look through some of this stuff to see, you know, what I've set, or what like I just showed you the profile peak XEDIT. This is a little bit, and I believe this is the one that comes on the system disk. And there's a whole bunch of things that are set in there. Okay, so I guess that's it for today.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to see more videos like this one. Have a suggestion for another video topic? Feel free to leave a comment below.